Hello there folks, Niall McGorn here from Lely Centre in Mullingar, and you're very welcome to our 5th virtual open day. Today I'm delighted to be in a place called Burrow in County Kildare, so it's located between Kilcullen and Athy, and we're delighted to be on the farm of Peter Anderson. So Peter converted to dairy in 2019. It was a low cost conversion. He made great use of decent sheds that he had to start off with. We would have surveyed his yard, developed a plan. We were happy it would work well, he was happy to do. We mapped his grazing block and we advised him on the whole startup, and we'll continue to work with him. So he started off with one robot, and his longer term plan was to go to a second robot, but as you'll probably learn from later on in the presentations, he didn't wait that long to take the second jump. So he's doing a tremendous job, was always a good operator, but has really grabbed dairy farming by the scruff of the neck and is getting good results. So what we're going to do now is learn a little bit about that transition. There's a text facility in the bottom of your screen, so if you can send your questions through over the course of the presentation, and at the very end we'll do our best to answer all those questions, because we'll have a live question and answer session with Peter and with our farm management support advisors Jordan Malloy and Sean Callan. So thank you.
Hello, my name is Sean Callan, working with Lely Centre Mullingar as part of the farm management support team. So we're on farm here with Peter Anderson today. Peter, I suppose we'll just take a look through as to what you've done to come from sucklers to dairying. I suppose obviously coming from a suckler farm, you had no dairy sheds in the yard. You would have met with the design team in Mullingar. I suppose, what was the first point of call when the lads called out to visit and take a look at the farm?
Well, I suppose I had a decent suckler shed there already, so it was going to be based in that, and there was a calf creep area beside the slats which suited putting the robots into, and we realised pretty quickly then that what buildings were in the yard, we didn't have to do any building at all. We put the bulk tank into a grain store which was across the yard, so we put a pipe underground to bring the milk over to it, which worked very well, because when the milk lorry comes into the yard, he doesn't have to come into the second yard where the livestock would be. So it keeps that area very clean.
Yeah, and I suppose then, kind of coming down to cost, you're saying you had a good suckler shed with a good creep area. You made good use of that. I suppose initially when you looked at getting into milk, would you have thought you were going to spend as much or maybe more in order to accommodate the robots and get them into an existing house?
I suppose I thought it was going to cost me a lot more, because I was going to have to build a lot of cubicles. But I'm managing to farm without building extra cubicles, because I can get the cows out early. And the robot actually helps in that, because the cows are only going out to a paddock for 8 hours at a time. So it's like on off grazing 3 times a day. So if they poach, they only poach a small area and you're moved on the next day. So one night's rain doesn't do a lot of damage to you. So like the cows are out from day one, so it does help with the accommodation, not having full accommodation of your cows, that you can get them out straight away, because half the herd is straw bedded. So by the time the first half are calved, they can certainly all be out, you know.
Yeah, so I suppose your entry into dairy, I suppose, was a 2-stage process. So you started off with one robot to begin and then brought a second one in afterwards. Yeah. I suppose the initial point when the lads were doing the design, was it always planned for 2 robots?
Yeah, Simon planned it for 2 robots, and I kind of smiled at the idea of a second robot. I said that'll be a while now, but the first one worked out so well in year 1, I just had to go with a second one straight away. Oh, well, the first job we did was build the robot room to have it ready. The last thing I wanted was a robot arriving before Christmas and not being ready to get it put in, because the cows were starting to calve at the end of January, and more than anything I wanted to be ready for that, and we were. So the robot room was built first, and it was ready way in advance. Then we converted the slab shed into a cubicle shed, and then we got the grain store ready for the bulk tank. So that was the bulk of the construction. There was no shed building, but it was just internal. And we had a sand pit on the farm, so we used all the gravel for the roadways, so that was done very cheaply.
And I suppose, how quick did all that come around? Like, you had a nice creep area there, you know, the cubicles are all out in front of your robots at the moment. I suppose, how long did it take to put that build work together?
So once the cattle went out in the spring, we just started cutting walls and breaking them, and you know, there was a bit of a push on maybe in the autumn time, but it was relaxed enough getting the work done. We had plenty of time to do it, and we had it all ready in time. With Robot 2, we decided late enough in the year to go with it, so I think we started getting that ready in November and was put in end of February.
So Peter, I know you mentioned earlier your milk tank was brought across the yard, so I suppose it is an option that we can do. In a traditional setup, your milk tank is normally always set in situ beside the parlour. I suppose the fact that where the yard was laid out and where the robot was going, there's a bit of a distance for a lorry to get in through, crossing over feed passages and whatnot. Like, it is an option that we can go and bring that milk tank about 100 metres away from the robots. You know, you've probably certainly made use of that. Would you like to have brought it any closer, or are you happy with how it's performing now?
I never thought when I was putting in the robot that I would have had the bulk tank 50 metres away. So when Simon suggested it, I thought it was a great idea, because the milk lorry can come into the first yard and you can leave your gates open and you can work with livestock in the main part of the yard. So this is a great idea.
Coming back then out towards roadways and paddocks and grass, so I suppose coming from sucklers, you would have had probably minimal enough level of infrastructure, grazing infrastructure on farm. How did you find that in terms of roadways? I suppose getting guidance on that, what level of infrastructure to put in, especially given it was a two-stage process coming from 1 to 2.
I remember giving you a map of the farm, and you pretty quickly came up with a roadway system, and I looked at it and it just seemed to work on paper, and we just put it to practice then, and that's it. That's your plan there now of all the roadways and drinkers in the same spots. I think we've 13 drinkers. You don't need too many really, so it works pretty well.
What size are the most of your roadways then, Peter, in terms of width?
Let me see, 6 feet. The bulk of them are about 6 feet wide.
Yeah, so that's spec'd up for around about 120, 130 cows.
Yeah, and they don't need to be any wider. I built them that size. There's no intention to use them for machinery. You can cross the fields with machinery, fertiliser spreading and slurry, you know. So, and the roadways are very, very much intact from the day they were put down, because you haven't any major rush of cows on them. It's a little mucky near the shed.
Yeah, like with your cows moving in and out, kind of more or less single file. You know, they're moving in 1s and 2s as opposed to a batch of 3 and 4 cows coming side by side out of the
And they're moving at their own pace. And there's cows going in and cows going out, and they pass each other, and it's amazing to watch a cow going in and a cow going out, and the other cow doesn't turn around and go with her, because she has it in her head, I'm going milking, and the other one has it in her head, I'm going to grass.
My name is Jordan Malloy, and I'm Farm Management Support with Lely Centre Mullingar, and I'm here with Peter Anderson, and we're just going to have a quick chat about, I suppose, what Peter started with and the future, what you're going to kind of do. So I suppose when you started up, Peter, how many cows were you milking, and what was the production like in the first year?
I started in 2019 with 64 heifers, and 3/4 of them were crossbreds and the rest were Friesians. And at the end of the year we ended up with 390 kilos of solids, so I was very happy with that.
And how much meal were you feeding with the...
A ton of meal in the first year as heifers, yeah.
And I suppose then second year then you decided then to go with the second robot.
Yeah, I was so happy with the first year. I went with the second robot and I bought 40 more heifers. So we milked 103 last year, and we averaged just under 500 kilos of solids with 63 cows in second lactation and 40 heifers. So I was very happy with that. We've calved 103 now, and there's 27 still to calve, so we're hoping to milk 130 this year.
And in lines of, you went with the Jersey crossbred for the majority of the herd. And I suppose, I know in year one after talking to you, you definitely saw a big difference between the Jerseys and the Friesians. So what was the difference in the wind-up?
Well, I can't tell you exactly, but I know that the Friesians have redeemed themselves and have caught up a lot in their second lactation. So I think they had a bit of growing to do in their first lactation. But I like both. I like the Friesians and I like the crossbreds. They both have their advantages, you know.
So you're kind of keep it both breeds in it, or what way?
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly stay with high EBI bulls going forward. And if I don't like the look of a cow getting too big or maybe dropping in solids, I might go back to using a certain amount of Jersey. But I think the future is EBI, all right, you know.
How did you find startup? Or
February and March were very difficult, and it was the middle of April before I said to myself, this is starting to look all right. And sure, this is my third year now and I'm very happy. Yeah. But yeah, starting off is very difficult.
And was it heifer training that was the biggest problem, or?
Heifer training, yeah, and then yourself. You're very anxious, and in year 2, you know you're going to get the better over, so you're not worried. Yeah. So
you're just finding it easier as every year you go on.
Every year it gets easier, yeah.
And how did you find the grazing, I suppose, coming from?
Grazing worked out very well. I was worried that, you know, it was going to be very difficult, but because you're moving along all the time, day by day, the grass is coming on behind you day by day. So you're just going around in a circle, and it just worked out very well for me.
And did you have any problems with cows coming in from grass, or?
I know last year was a very good year. There was practically no sweeping of paddocks, but then I only had the 103 cows on the 2 robots, which was very comfortable. In year 1 with all heifers, there was probably a bit more effort putting into getting them to come in and out. But then last year we had the cows who knew the story, and they brought the heifers with them.
Yeah. So it was less training anyway, and there
was less work last year, yeah.
And you went for a spring calving system. Why spring calving?
Well, the idea was to utilise the grass on the farm. You know, we had the land here and we wanted to use the grass to produce milk. We go out straight away with the cows when they calve and they don't go back in.
Yeah. They've been out full time now since February.
We started letting them on the 9th of February on ABC, and that's it the whole way through. We had to because we're short on cubicles, but even so, we can still go out. Yeah, like we went out last year full time, and last year was a particularly bad spring. So when it worked last year, I knew it was going to work every year.
When you were changing over to the system, you obviously went and looked at robots. Why did you decide to go down the robot route?
Well, I suppose the profitability of sucklers had declined so much. I had to look at some way of an income, and so milk was always in my head, but I didn't relish the thoughts of milking cows twice a day when I'm in my 50s. So I went and I looked at a robot at an open day, and that made me decide to go for milk and to go with a robot.
So you went and looked at you went to a few open days, you went to see farms with robots. Yeah. They would have told you, I presume, the good and the bad points, or?
Yeah, I went to a few open days and they were very informative and gave you a good idea of how the robots worked. But it wasn't until you actually went to a farm on your own and had a chat with a farmer who had a robot, it convinced me then that it worked. And the farmers that I spoke to were very like me. They were ex-sucklers, they were good with cows, and they managed the robot well and they were happy with them. So I said, well, if it's good for them, it's good for me.
And I suppose, has there been any challenges with the robot, or any, I suppose, big differences from putting in the robot to what you thought was going to happen? Or
I suppose there's a certain amount of anxiety with a robot of it breaking down, but any machine can break down. But the service is very good, so you get to know that if you have a problem, that it's going to be sorted no matter what. So that takes the anxiety out of that. But it takes a while to kind of get comfortable with it.
So I suppose obviously starting off with in year 1, you were kind of going into the unknown. So what was the big difference between year 1 and year 2?
Well, I suppose in year 1 it was all heifers, and every time a heifer calved, you had the problem of putting her into the robot and getting her milked and getting her trained. So it was work all the way. And then in year 2 we had those 60 Heifers were now second lactation, so when they calved, there was no trouble with them. They knew the system, so once they calved and were put into the row, but you didn't see them after that. So then you still had your 40 heifers to calve, which was less daunting because you knew you were going to get the better of them anyway, and they followed the cows out through the grazeway and in and out of the fields, and they helped to train them in. So it was easier in year 2. Yeah.
So you have the tags that have the heat detection and the rumination. So I suppose if you want to kind of maybe say, do you use them for the health side of it as well as activity, or what?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the heat detection. I relied 100% on the collars for heat detection, and I was very happy with the results. I had no experience of watching cows for an AI man because we always had bulls with sucklers, but it worked very well and made life very easy for me. I didn't have to worry about watching cows, and of course I watched them all right, and I never saw a cow bulling but that the computer had it flagged, so that made me very confident that they were all being got. When the cow is bulling and it's picked up by the system, she's drafted into either a pen, or you can even draft her into a little paddock, so that if she's drafted during the night she can still be grazing away, and she can milk as well and be constantly drafted.
I suppose coming from suckler farmers, Peter, probably very new into the dairy, new to a dairy cow, I suppose we have Lely's T4C. How did you find that in helping you get up and running as an efficient dairy farmer, I suppose?
Well, I suppose the fact that you're not under a cow in a milking parlour observing the udder, you do need something to tell you if there's a problem, and the T4C often will tell you if a cow has mastitis. And I often drafted a cow out, and you would check her out and you say there's not a problem with her, and the next day the T4C would say, yeah, there's a problem, and you check her out and you say to yourself, there is something going on here. So it actually knew the day before you knew. So it does give you great comfort that the cows are all being milked and they're being observed as well. But once the T4C tells you there's a problem, you need to draft your cow and look at her and check her out. Most of the time there isn't a problem, it's more of a warning. So it's invaluable from that point of view.
And I suppose coming back to that then, getting that early detection, are you getting in and treating those cows earlier and getting a better return rate? Or?
Yeah, last year I used some non-antibiotic boluses, and they did work pretty well in terms of not having to use antibiotics. So for the ones that do require antibiotics, well, you just might get in a day or two earlier than normal, and you have a better chance of solving the problem.
Those cows that are going clinical then as well, the fact that you have the health and heat collars, are you finding any drops in rumination or eating minutes as well on those sick cows?
You would see drop in rumination with a mastitis case, yeah, but you've got your flagging for the mastitis, and rumination drops with it because the cow's in bad form. So it all helps you to make a decision on what you're going to do with a cow, whether you'll go in with antibiotics or whether you'll try a non-antibiotic treatment.
Yeah, so I suppose looking over, I presume you have looked over cell counts of cows over the years. Is there cows that would surprise you in how low they stay and in how much cows can kind of...
Oh, there's a big variation, yeah. Yeah, there's a big variation in the cell counts, yeah. And you can monitor the cell count throughout the year. They rise and they go down again as well. If you can look at a graph for the year and a cow has a low cell count for the full year, well, she's definitely a candidate for no dry cow therapy. But I suppose the first thing you're going to look at on your screen every morning is your health. You're looking for mastitis all the time, and the odd day you'll get flagged for it and you draft your cow and you check her out. Rumination is another one. If it goes down, you might want to check her out. You might just go look at her in the field and decide to draft her or not. I can see the T4C being very good down the line. I haven't used it yet, but in terms of making breeding decisions and culling, you'll be able to, say, put a bull with good solids on a cow that has poor solids, and put a cow with milk on a cow that has low milk, but she probably has high solids. So you'd be able to match your bull with your cow better. Yeah, make better breeding decisions with the information that you have.
I suppose looking out across the cows, we can see all the cows are standing behind us. We can get them up on the app here. So cow 2775, just down in the field there. At the moment she's 18 days calf, doing 34 kilos of milk with 3.1 kilos of milk solids. So she's running quite efficiently. Her cell count there is sitting around about 150,000 for the last week. She's not going up too high, she's sitting fairly steady for a fresh calf cow. Looking at her lactation performance last year, she done 7,600 kilos of milk with 670 kilos of milk solids. So she's quite a profitable animal. And looking at her feed to yield figures, Peter, she only got a ton of meal. So you're getting to use that feed to yield to really reward the upper cows and maybe feed a little bit less to your lower yielders too. Like last year, I suppose, what level of milk solids did you sell?
Yeah, 490 kilos of milk solids per cow, I think it was last year.
So it's just kind of boiling down to, you're saying, Peter, earlier on, you can pick those cows and draft them from your phone. You have everything, your health report here. So like identifying that cow in the paddock, you can navigate her back to the separation area in the yard, so that by the time you walk in and she come back in the evening time, she's sitting waiting for you, be it a lame foot that you want to lift and check for a stone, or like, I suppose, what's your biggest use of the drafting? Like, are you using it for lameness or mastitis?
The best use of the drafting is for the heat detection. So you come down in the morning during the breeding season and the cows are there waiting for the AI man. You actually wouldn't have to be around.
Yeah. Like that's all automatically then, the heat detection is done automatically. So suppose in a manual sense, you picking out a cow to draft, rather than having to go and walk through this herd of cows and pick out one to bring back in, what are you using that?
Oh
that
yeah, if I see
for?
a cow that has a little limp or anything, straight away I will put her on draft. I can do it from the phone here in front of her in case I forget to do it later on, and she will be drafted within a few hours more than likely. And I lift her foot and look at it and do what I have to do. You can draft a cow for any reason. If you don't like the look of a spin, or if you see she's a little bit of pink eye, or any reason, you don't have to go and get her in. She'll come in and she'll be drafted, she'll be there for you.
So I suppose we'll do a bit of look on the heat detection collars that come with the robots. So we've seen Peter has one of these on every animal that's going through the system at the moment. You also would have seen over the last 4 webinars, all of the customers are using heat detection and health monitoring collars. So we got a lot of questions through on how they work, what options are available for them. So I suppose just to break it down, it's doing heat detection and health monitoring. So that's involved with activity, movement of the cow. It's also doing rumination and eating minutes. So all that information has been fed back into the Lely's T4C software for managing the herd, which is what Peter would have been talking about earlier on. So I suppose the majority of our robots being installed are all coming with this tag for heat detection and health. It can also be got as a standalone system for running alongside a parlour, which is known as a Sense Hub system. If you have any questions about that or any interest in it, get in touch, we'll pass on whatever details is needed. But on the robot front, this is all passed in through a reader that's placed in your yard, back into the system to feed all that information back that you can access and make your decision on a day-to-day basis. I suppose what it compromises of is you have a strap that goes on to hold everything on the cow's neck. You have your identification numbers down the side and a weight then just to keep the responder actually sitting in the right place on the cow's neck. So they're an incredibly accurate piece of equipment. They're probably, the Sense Hub system is probably the market leader at the moment. Covering a hell of a lot of parlours, covering a hell of a lot of robots, not just in Ireland but on a global scale as well. So I suppose detecting the information that's off this tag, we can do up to 1 kilometre away in line of sight. Outside of that then, if the cow does happen to go out of range on the reader, as soon as she comes back in, the tag is storing all that information, so when the tag does reappear in range of the reader, it'll download all that information and update the system. On a robot scenario, your cows are coming in and out of the yard between 2 and 3 times a day, so we should be able to pick this up quite regularly and routinely during the day. And the main thing is that the information is downloaded before a cow comes back through the yard, so that the automatic drafting can have her separated out for you for when your AI tech comes down. You can get that cow AI'd and let her back into the main herd. Similar scenario in a parlour, you know, kilometre line of sight. And again, if the cows are out of range, when you bring your cows back in for milking that evening, the system will download all of the information and have it uploaded before your cows make it through a drafting gate or before they leave the yard, so you can make your decision on it. As well as that, all of that information of cows that are in heat, cows that haven't shown heats in a pre-breeding scenario, all accessible through your phone. So it's not just usable for the breeding season, you can use this for your pre-breeding detection as well. Identify cows that are possibly cystic, you know, having multiple heats in a month, cows that haven't had a cycle yet. So we're trying to get that herd up to 90% minimum submission rate in the first 3 weeks. You know, people using this to the highest level are typically getting well above 90% in submission rates, with very good conception rates then for the first 6 weeks. So at the moment you can see that the cows are coming in and doing 26 kilos of milk per day at the moment, so that's in the last 24 hours. Cows are on the rise, you know, they're heading towards peak milk. I suppose for the last 7 days we've an average of 23 kilos of milk. So the milk yield is coming up there every day, pushing on, especially when Peter's out full time at grass. We're getting that rise in milk yield. Boiling over here, then you can see the level of butterfat and protein production that's currently ongoing on farm. So cows at the minute are averaging 4.7 butterfat and a 3.26 protein. So a little bit of silage in there is probably holding the protein back, get them out onto grass a little bit more often. We can see the rumination activity coming down here. So cows are ruminating 530 minutes in the day. Your optimum for that is roughly between 450 and 600 minutes. And all that information again has been picked up off those heat detection and health collars, passed into the system and given this figure here. So we can look at these on a breakdown of groups, so milking cows or milking heifers. But then if you want to look at this a bit more fine detail, we can get the cow daily production report here, which I suppose gives you all of those cows on an individual basis and giving you each cow's milk yield. So we can see at the moment we have a range of 5.2 kilos of milk up to 37.6 kilos of milk. So obviously the 5.2 kilos is very freshly calved, it's only calved today. Over on the right hand side we have the cell count indication then for every animal. So you can see there's not too many cows sitting too high. We've this cow here sitting at 1.2 million and 3 weeks calved. But the vast majority of other cows are sitting underneath 100,000 in cell count. So the overall herd cell count is very low, been managed very well. We can see at the moment the cows is getting an average of 4.5 kilos of meal. So not a very high feed rate, especially given it is only mid-March. With, you know, that meal rate will be cut once the second rotation starts and grass growth takes off. Looking back over, I suppose we heard Peter talking about his health reports and his collect cows. So up on the top left here we have Peter's favourites. So the health report is kicking in here, top of the list, number 10. So what this is doing, it's taking a collection of all of the different sensors that's available on the robot. So we're getting cell count indication, the rumination figures, conductivities then for early mastitis detection, and then we also have a fat protein ratio to flag for any ketosis cows or problems like that. But each cow is getting a 6 score here. So 66 is being the highest at the moment, and with 10 being the lowest. So the further towards 99 that cow goes, the more likely she is to be chronically sick. With cows sitting down towards 10, might having a small little issue with them that doesn't need a whole pile of attention. So I suppose looking at the report, most of these cows are still sitting in the preventative zone. So before they head up into the 30s and 40s, the farmer can interact with those cows beforehand, pick up on a problem that's there, and maybe get them back round to good health before a problem actually brews up inside. So you're getting those cows returned back into milk much quicker. You're minimising the loss of milk between milk not produced and then milk separated out of the milk tank as well. So there's a lot to be gained here for milk in the tank by picking up these cows preventatively and taking them back and getting them back in the tank. Down here then we have the other health work list. So I suppose the other health work list is primarily other related issues. So it's excluding rumination and activity. It's based purely on cell count, milk yield, conductivities, and then colour codes then for milk. So we can see there's cows been flagged up here for colostrum milk. We have cows been flagged up for abnormal milk. Another cow been flagged up here for bloody milk in 1 quarter. So it's really got anything got to do with a quarter or an udder problem. So it's really flagging those cows up for you. We can see there's a couple of these are only very freshly calved, or very late in lactation. So that's just throwing these up on a list and allows the farmer to make a decision then to draft those cows out, investigate them and release them back to the main herd or treat. So we can see here from the Lactation Performance, we've cow 2793. She calved on the 8th of February 2020, and for her lactation she averaged a butter fat of 6.07 and a protein percentage of 4.28. So she's very high solids. So I suppose that equated to 452 kilos of milk fat and 318 kilos of milk protein. So that's coming in around 770 kilos of milk solids, with approximately 1 ton worth of concentrate fed out through the robot. So it's a very high performing animal with not a very high input. I suppose that animal done that off 7,457 kilos of milk and was predicted to do 7,300 inside 305 days. So the herd average for predicted production was 5,800, and we can boil down along here and look to see who is the high performers, who are the low performers. So it's all well and good knowing your top performer, but more often than not it's the bottom 5% that most farmers need to look at, because they're the cows that can be taken out of the system and improve the overall average to a high level. So a couple of years of pulling your bottom 5% of production won't be long getting you up over 500 kilos of milk solids while maintaining your level of inputs, or maybe even decreasing your level of inputs.
Thanks very much to Peter, to Sean and to Jordan. I hope you'll agree, very comprehensive report there on Peter and his family's transition to dairy farming from suckler and tillage. We learned an awful lot, but I know there's an awful lot of questions after coming through over the last 30 minutes. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to go straight into the live question and answer sessions. You can still send in your questions on the bottom of the screen by text, and we'll crack on and we'll answer those questions. Thank you very much.
Excellent job, guys. Very, very interesting. Thanks very much, Peter, for opening up your farm to us.
You're welcome.
How was all in Burrow today?
We're all well. It was a great day, Sean. Or sorry, Niall. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful weather. Beautiful weather. How was all in Carlow, Jordan?
Yeah, good. Sunny southeast.
Sean is up in RD in County Louth, and I'm Niall McGorn. I'm here in Mullingar. So, guys, we have a mountain of questions. I'm going to crack on and get straight into it. So, Peter, it's going to be like a rapid fire buzzer round, right? Just a whole load of questions, and we'll get through as many as we can in the next 10 minutes. So, first question is a guy called Jim. 490 kilos is very good for year 2. What is your long-term target?
Well, when I started, my plan was to get a cow to do 500 kilos of solids with 500 kilos of meal. So anything beyond that will be a bonus for me. So look, I'd say 500 is very achievable. So we'll just push on as far as we can, and the next year or two will tell a lot, you know.
There was a lot of comments in the feed about the excellent results. And what did you get? You got almost 400 kilos in your first year?
Yeah, 380 or 90 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of people very complimentary on that, so well done. Fergal has a question. Does he measure grass?
Not really, no, and it's something I intend to do. Yeah, okay. I only finished off making paddocks there this spring. So now I have a proper map and proper paddocks measured acreage-wise. So I have that in place now. So the next step is to start measuring and recording. So that'll be happening this year, please God.
Okay, very good. Another question from Fergal. Fergal has a few questions in there. How much nuts did you feed last year?
Yeah, a ton of nuts. Yeah.
Okay. Another Fergal again. How often do you walk the farm?
Well, every day, because you're changing your fences 3 times a day. So that brings you to every corner of the farm every day. So I'm well aware of the grass around me, even though I'm not measuring, but I do it in my head.
So you're us eyeballing, really?
Yeah, eyeballing, yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, it seems to be working for you.
Yeah.
Question from Adrian. Does he think there is more or less work with the dairy enterprise than you were beef, sheep and tillage, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
So Adrian's question is, do you think there's less or more work in the dairy enterprise than what you were doing before?
Yeah, I think I'm not as busy now. Yeah, but I'm more busy in my head, I think. There's a lot more day-to-day thinking.
Right.
So, yeah, I wouldn't be as busy or as hard-working as I was, I think, yeah.
Okay, but more management maybe, is it?
It's all management and planning, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Do you enjoy that more than what you were doing before?
Oh, it's a great challenge, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and relish the challenge, yeah.
Good, good, good. Question from Seamus. How many acres in the grazing platform?
There's 110 there, but we haven't used it all yet.
Okay. Question from Pat. How long is the furthest walk?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'd say it's about 1 kilometre. We haven't gone to the end of the farm yet because we're still increasing. But yeah, there's at least 1 kilometre there to go to get to the end.
Do you see that as any issue?
No, and they've gone 800-900 metres now already, and it's no problem.
No challenge.
So,
no challenge. People were very interested, Peter, when you seen the cows passing.
Yeah.
There's a few comments on that. You know, how long did you have to wait to see cows passing? But I'm guessing you're seeing it all the time. People are kind of hard to get their heads around cows going different directions on the same road.
Same roadway. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to watch it all, right? It just works, you know. I can't explain it, but it just works, you know.
The question I'm always asked is, if a cow coming in to be milked meets a cow coming back after being milked, will she not just turn around and just would they not travel together?
Yeah, well, as I said there in the video, obviously it's in the cow's head when she's coming out after being milked that she's heading out to grass and nothing's going to stop her. And likewise, the cow coming in, she knows she's heading for nuts. That's the attraction to go to the robot.
Yeah.
And she keeps going to get her nuts, and then she knows that she's got her nuts now. What's she going to eat now? So she can go back to grass.
So both ladies are on a mission, but in different directions.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good, very good. A question from Stephen. Does Peter miss anything about his beef or sheep farming?
No, I don't think I do. Maybe just looking at nice calves, sucking the cows in the spring, but you know, the dairy herd are much easier managed. The more docile animals are pleasure to work with, and I love working with them now, to be honest with you.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. A question from Darren. Has Peter any other labour on the farm?
Yeah, I had a man full-time for February and March this year, and he's finished now this week, so I'm on my own now for the rest of the year, as I was last year as well.
Okay.
Just calling a guy the odd day to do a day's vaccinations or whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Because your kids are still young enough.
They're still a help. They're a good help. Yeah.
What age are the kids, Peter?
12, 11 and 10.
All in training?
All in training, yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. A question from Brian. Is there any extra cost in installing the second robot? I'm assuming, Brian, extra cost putting in the second one as opposed to putting in two at the same time. There's not really. And normally when our yard planner, Simon or William, are doing a design and the farm has the capacity to carry more cows than maybe one robot can milk, they would try and future-proof it. So our install team would leave things in such a way that it's very easy to plumb in the second robot, because obviously we want to make it easy for the client to do that. And I think it was relatively straightforward in your case, Peter. It just linked into what was there already. And I'm assuming the guys were only a couple of days on farm installing. I can't remember, but I doubt they were there much longer than 2 days.
A day and a half.
Day and a half, yeah. So that to surprise people, we can install a single robot from scratch, generally in 3 days, maybe 4 if there's an exceptionally long milk line. And we have been known to put in a robot, a full system in a day for different reasons. But guys maybe putting into the parlour area and different challenges. So it is possible to do it very, very quickly once you have most of the building in place. Here is one from Brian. Is the Jersey cow, I might put this to you, Sean, maybe. or Jordan jump in, whichever. Is the Jersey cow crossbred cow more suitable for the robot, or is a Holstein better? Who wants to take that one?
I suppose I'll take the first part of it, Jordan. You want to kick in afterwards. Well, I suppose when it boils down to what suits the robot better, it's really kind of what boils down to suits the farmer and the farm in most cases. Right, there's different challenges with different breeds. Obviously, Jerseys are slightly smaller. You need to, tighten up the box a little bit, give them a little bit less room. Holsteins then will take up more space in the box. So it's really, any cow will walk in the robot. I say, Peter, you'd probably agree with that. Bar a cow that has extremely poor teats, but they'd want to be very bad before they don't work long term. Like, look at land type and the farmer's own, I suppose, preferences is a big part of it. Like, Jordan, have you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Like, the majority of our farms, we had the last open day we had, the farmer had Fleckfee. Peter has crossbreds. We would have done ones on Friesians. We would have done an open day already on extreme Holsteins that were indoors. So really, no matter what part of the country you go to, indoors, outdoors, half in, half out, there's a mix. There's a range of different breeds that are working on robots. So, like as Sean said, it's really more so to suit the farm than the robot. Like, the robot's just a way to milk cows. Like, so it's irrelevant. Like.
Yeah, I suppose one thing that everyone has got in common is that majority is all trying to get the most from grass, and bring in complementary feeding then where it's needed. But obviously your Jersey will take less complementary feeding. She'll get more of her milk from grass. But other than that, really, it's completely down to the farmer, like Jordan was saying.
Peter, if you had to choose one or the other, which would it be?
It's 50-50 now. That's the herd is split 50-50, and they both have their advantages. It's grand to see a small Jersey cow going out in February and not minding the wind and the rain, and being light-footed. And then it's great to see a Friesian going out in summer, bringing in a big bag of milk as well. So it's hard to sell the Jersey bull calves. So that's the disadvantage there. But I like the idea of the high side. You're getting away a lot of solids in less litres. Mm-hmm. So you have a little advantage there as well.
Okay, so you're still sitting on the fence though. You like
sitting on the fence, yeah. I admit that, yeah.
And high EBI is your strategy.
That's it for the moment, yeah.
Okay. A question from Paul: how long can the milk line be? I think in Peter's case, it's about 50 meters. Looking at the picture that's up there. So look, Paul, mostly we generally say up to 100 meters is relatively straightforward. It may be in a duct underground, or maybe pulled through the shed, depending on what best suits. The longest milk line in Ireland is a little over I think it's 237 meters. So look, it's all doable, no issues in milk quality. Most people's milk line is probably under 50 meters, but 100 meters isn't much of a challenge. Maybe an option. What may happen is, in an existing farm, you may leave the milk tank where it is at the top end of the yard, but the robots could be at the other end near the grazing block. So generally not a big challenge. A question, Jordan: does the robot give you butter fat percentage and protein percentage and cell count per cow or per herd?
So it does. It gives you fat and protein and cell count of the herd, and then it gives you fat, protein, cell count of each individual cow on a daily basis. So it does both. So exactly like your milk or carton, okay, on a daily basis.
Excellent. A question from Liam: do you use much more water and chemical with a 50-meter milk line? Answer is, Liam, you don't. Without boring too much technical details, it's not a circulation wash. It's a 22 mil, very high quality, food grade plastic milk line that we insulate, and the wash is dumped out at the front end of the tank or bottom fill in the tank, and it's high temperature and low volume. So there's actually no more water used or chemical used, whether it's 10-meter milk line or 100-meter milk line, believe it or not. And then we purge the milk line with air, blow out any water after the wash. So there's no eliminate risk of excess water in the milk. So as long as we install the milk line properly and the plan is correct, there shouldn't be an issue. A question, Sean, for you is, how does the pre-breeding with the collars work?
So I suppose with the pre-breeding and the things on the collars, like every cow is coming into the yard a couple of times a day or coming in within range of that long distance reader. So it's downloading all that information and basically walking off the rumination and the activity of the cow is going to generate a heat index. The higher on that index she is, the more likely she is to be in heat. Obviously, once the farmer, or Peter in this case, is marking those heats in, basically come the week before breeding season, every cow will be recorded with a heat. There'll be some cows then will be recorded with suspect cystic cows, so having multiple heats through the month. So all of those cows that either haven't had a heat or are cystic will show up on one report, and they can be automatically drafted out to a different part of the farm with the rest of the herd. So you can get your vet in to check them over and basically intervene. So that's, it's working towards trying to get that 100% submission rate in the first 3 weeks. But it's all through T4C, and you can draft them out automatically then before you go breeding.
Excellent. A question, Jordan, for you from Kevin. Given the technology of earlier detection of mastitis, is there any data to show that herds on robotic milking have lower culling rate than a conventional parlour?
Now, unless you have anything, Sean, but there's no data, but I would say, look, on the ground, what's happening is lads are probably using less antibiotics in general, so it's not so much as lower cull rates, etc. It's just probably lower antibiotic usage and possibly less mastitis cases. So I don't know, Sean, unless you have anything there to add to that.
No, I don't think there's any, I suppose, exact figures or research done on it. But no, I probably agree with you. There's more people going in with non-antibiotic treatments, having less milk going into the tank, especially anyway coming from parlour scenarios. We're finding most people coming from parlour scenarios tend to be using a hell of a lot less, in some cases down to 50 and 20% of what they used to be using in the parlours, getting a big increase there in terms of, their antibiotic usage. They're not using as much of it and getting cows back in the tank quicker, without having to cull those cows out of the herd either.
Very good. Great performance in your herd, Peter. Good stock and good grass. That's a comment from John. Stephen has another question. Do you shut the robots down for a couple of months or keep a few cows going through all year round?
The first year, because they were all heifers that were dried off 3 months before calving, so the robot was stopped for a couple of months. But then this year, I actually mixed through a few late calvers and a few empties. So I just barely managed to milk through. I think I went down to 12 there at one stage before the first one started to calve again then at the end of January.
Okay. A lot of I don't know what the proportion is, Jordan, but we would have a fair share of people who have the robots turned off for 2 months, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I don't know exact figure, but I would say easily probably 25 farms that do shut down.
Yeah.
Fully for at least, I would say, a minimum of 3 weeks, possibly even up to 6 weeks. So I would say about 25. Yeah.
Okay, very good. A question from Patrick, Peter, for you. Do you run a bull, and if so, how do you manage the bull on the ABC grazing?
Yeah, so I AI for about 6 to 7 weeks, and then mop up with 2 Aberdeen Angus bulls for another 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, just leave them with the cows and they follow them around. When a cow goes through the grazeway, if he's right up behind the cow, the gate will stay open for him to run through. Yeah.
Okay, so no issues at the bull and the grazing system.
Well, you sort of have to train the bull to go through the gate, and you have to keep an eye out for the first few days that there's a bull with the cows wherever the cows are. If I remember rightly, I may have brought the bull. If the bull stayed behind, I might have brought him on and put him with the cows, a few hours later or something. But after 4 or 5 days or a week, he's kind of always where you want him. Yeah.
I suppose the critical thing, folks, is when you're registering the cow, you put a collar around the bull so that it can go through the gates. the drafting gates, the grazing gates, but obviously you tell the robot that it's a bull and not a cow. That would be an important distinction. A question from Michael. On average, how many times would a heifer have to be turned into the robot to train her? In your experience, Peter?
That varies. I've put heifers in once and they haven't had to be put in again at best. And I have 4 or 5 there now that have to be put in every day and they're 3 weeks calved. But I know it's getting better every day. So I'd say by the middle of April, that won't be an issue.
Yeah. I suppose just to add on that point, you know, just from the last couple of years' experience dealing with the grazing herds, Peter, you might agree with this. I know you said it was kind of come mid-April, it generally levels itself out. But a lot of the time when cows go out full-time to grass, a lot of these collection issues disappear. You know, cows move through the system a lot smoother. Once you get cows out full-time to move through for fresh grass, there's a hell of a lot less collection needed. You know, you might have to gather 1 or 2 cows left in a paddock for the first week or 10 days when you go full-time. But outside of that, I think, Peter, would you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. Once they're full-time on grass, things get very good, very easy. Mine are out full-time on grass, okay, but they're still getting silage in the shed. So it's not really until you take out the silage completely do things settle down fully, because I suppose I could take the silage out any day now, really. Okay. And look forward to an easy summer then.
Very good, very good. I keep flying through the questions. They're coming in quicker than we can answer them. We're not going to get through them all, folks. But we will reply to anyone we don't answer. We will get back within the next 24 hours. But we'll answer privately. A question from George. What's the maximum number of cows per robot? Jordan.
Thanks. Right, okay, I'm not going to say cow numbers. So the way I always say it is a good target, and I say target because there's people achieving it, is 2,000 kilos per robot per day. So you could have obviously 60 higher yielding cows or 70 average yielding cows, or whatever way you want to work it out. Obviously then depending on calving pattern, etc. But there is lads that are doing 24 and 25 kilos per robot per day. And even at the moment, there's lads doing, even right now, we're not even peaking, there's lads doing 2,200 kilos per robot. I was on a farm today in Tipperary and he's doing 2,200 kilos at the moment. So it's litres per robot, and that is based on how fast your cows milk. So really that is your limiting factor. So I'm not saying how many cow numbers. That's...
Jordan, being a fan, Sean, what would you say?
Look, a good target to have is 70, but like, we are finding there's some herds coming in with 70 cows, you know, very fast milking and able to put 75, 80, 85 cows, you know, if they've been selecting for that. Obviously, very poor milk speed cows, Jordan said, you're going to fit a few less on those, especially if they're high milkers. But look, a good target to run is 70 cows, certainly no more first 2 to 3 years. You know, give yourself a couple of years to get bed into the system, cull out those slower milkers, because no matter where you buy cows or no matter what way you breed your cows, you're always going to have a few slow ones that's going to hold the system back. But if you look at 70 is a reasonable level number to look at, certainly no more than 70.
Okay, thanks for that. Guys, moving on. Question from John. Peter, did you consider a parlour?
Not really, no. That's what kept me from milk once the quotas were lifted. And then when I saw the robot working, I said, well, this is what I'm going to do now. I'll go for it now.
You waited a few years just to be sure, was that it?
Yeah, I was thinking of going in straight away, and a friend of mine said, why would you go in straight away? Give it a year or two and see what happens. And milk stayed reasonably good, so then we made the plunge.
Okay. Another question from John. How long did it take you to get used to the computer?
Very quickly. I mean, when you have to learn something, you will learn it, you know. So, yeah, I'm still learning, you know. I mean, there's no end to what you can do on it. And you can go into finer detail. But, you know, once you start milking there in 1st of February, after a couple of weeks, you know most of what you need to know, because you have to know.
Would you have been doing much with computers beforehand?
No, not at all.
No. I know. I say, Sarah, your good wife is probably very strong in that area too.
She is, yeah.
In fairness, I'm sure she's helpful. We haven't mentioned her yet.
She set me up on Zoom as well, so.
Yeah, I thought you might have had some help. So, hello, Sarah. Okay, there's a question here from John as well. Has Peter any plans to go grass measuring?
Definitely, yes. Yeah. I hope to sort that out now this year once and for all, yeah.
A question, Jordan, for you. How many farms using the robot are actively grass measuring? Percentage-wise?
I think it's only something like, I don't know, Sean, maybe correct me, about 20%, maybe. About 20. So not that many. So basically, is it necessary to be measuring grass with a robot? No. Same way it's not in a parlour either. But is it helpful? Yes. So
people would be kind of surprised that Peter's doing so well and not measuring grass.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. Look, in the parlour, it's the same way. Like Peter's saying that he's walking his farm essentially every day anyway. Same way, some farmers that are in parlours that aren't measuring grass are doing a good job as well. It's not necessarily that you have to be measuring, but it is definitely a helpful tool to get an extra bit out of your grass and management. But anyone that's good at grass management by walking your farm every day is going to be better grassland than a farmer that's not walking his farm every day.
Okay, so just having a
regardless.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is from anonymous attendee. I'm seriously considering putting in robots, currently milking in the parlour, finding it very hard to design yard layout and best use of existing buildings. Any tips? Look, we've done webinars. If you go to our website, Lely Mullingar, you'll see them. We've done webinars on yard design, graze and layout design, and there's a load of tips on that. You're very welcome to see that. They're there free for everyone to look at. But look, when we set up the business originally, it was very obvious to me that getting the yard plan right is critical. Cow flow, very important. Good automatic drafting system is very important, and it's got to be labour efficient. And it can be difficult. And we, luckily enough, early on in our business, we kind of seen the need for a specialist yard designer. Simon Moore joined the business then, and he's excellent in that area. And he's huge experience, and he's robots himself, and his dad and brother Andrew have robots. So that experience was very helpful. And now we've William Conlon, and we've James McDonough, Marco Farrell, so we're very strong in that area. And they would link in with the likes of Jordan and Sean and Cormac Garvey. But in truth, you need to have boots on the ground. You need to walk the farm. Like today, we had the guys with farm management support and yard design and project manager on a client's farm, just trying to see, okay, how do we organise the grazing block? How do we make sure that links in well with the yard? Is there any building required? How do we ensure we've got good cow flow? So look, it does take a bit of thinking. There is a lot of cases where you go on a farm and you show the client what they have to do, and they're shocked that it's so little and it's so simple and the minimum amount of building that's required. But then on the other side, there's sometimes we show people, look, you have to do more than what you realised. And if you're not willing to do it this way, maybe you should kind of pass on this opportunity, because if you don't set it up right day one, you know, you're at a huge disadvantage. Cow flow is so critical. So we're open to do farm appraisals by appointment. There's a lot of information we can send on to you if you want to contact us. We're happy to share it. But the real expertise is by having boots on the ground, a good conversation, get our bearings, walk the farm, and we're happy to do yard design after that. Look, if it's complicated, and you're not sure whether you want to go ahead and we have to do a lot of work, like there might be a charge, but look, it's nothing excessive. So look, we're happy to share our experience. Okay, I'm just looking at questions again. That question, Peter, on the jerseys and the Frisians has come up a lot. A lot of people are looking for a more definitive answer, but you're looking at the best of both, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, if I look at the 10 best cows, like it's 50-50. There's 50% crossbred and 50% Frisians there. If I look at the 10 best cows, I'd say 6 or 7 will be Frisians, or 8. on litres. But then if you flip it and get the 10 best cows on solids, it's going to beat the crossbreds. Like a cow calf this morning, just around 10 o'clock, a crossbred, and when I'm registering her as having calves, I just looked into what her lactation results were last year, and she'd done 640 kilos of solids, like huge, like for a little cow, you know. Now, they're not all doing that, but sure, I told you what I'm averaging, but, you know.
It shows the power of that information that you have on your phone or on your computer.
Yeah. Look at the way it is. It'll be interesting to see what the herd will be like in a few years, because I'll breed from the best ones, and we'll see what way it goes. You know, I'll be using high EBI bulls, so it's going to go more Frisian, but I'd say I'll definitely be keeping Jersey blood in them anyway. If a cow goes too big, certainly I'll put a Jersey on her. But at the moment now, I've used high EBI bulls.
There's a question there from an anonymous attendee. Again, it could be a different one, I don't know. Would you use the dairy beef index or try increase the value of the surplus calves, especially on the crossbred? Or is the benefit of not having the labour with AI with a mop-up bull?
Let me see now. How can I answer that question? Well, I suppose I thought bad of calling the AI man for one cow a day. So that's why I went with the bulls. So, I mean, I have 2 Angus bulls there now, and they're throwing very, very good beef calves. So I'm happy with them. But yeah, I'd try the DBI index, of course, going forward, yeah.
Okay. Stephen has a question. Can you graze cows? We're only going to take 3 more guys, and then anything else we'll answer privately, and we'll have this video recording posted on our website and on our YouTube channel if you want to go over it again. Or you can contact us in Lely Centre Mullingar. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might think of after this. A question, Stephen, Sean, you might take this. Can you graze cows without having a grazeway set up?
Yeah, you can graze cows without having a grazeway set up, but it's a bit like trying to drive a cow out a steering wheel. It's awkward and it's a bit risky. So the best thing you can do is by setting up your farm properly through a grazeway, you get a bit of control as to where your cows can move. You can offer them 3 fresh breaks of grass a day. Like if you look back across the webinars, there's a couple on grass and management that Jordan would have done. There's another one now on farm layout and infrastructure that I've done. It kind of goes through the workings of, I suppose, how the ABC system works. But if you watch back through that, you'll see everything is going with an ABC system. It's given 3 fresh breaks of grass a day, and it's trying to reward cows as best as possible based on their milk yield that they're doing. Without a grazeway, we don't really have that control. It's kind of completely up to the cow, and when she walks back in by 700-800, maybe even a kilometre and a half away, you know, obviously we want her to milk and then head out to the next paddock and stay outside then for the next 8, 10, 12 hours before coming back in to go to the next one. So yes, you can graze without a grazeway, but it's like driving a cow without a steering wheel, and I like my cow with a steering wheel.
Yeah, don't we all? Second last question, a question from Emmett. What is the average servicing cost per robot per annum? It's about 2,250 plus VAT. For everybody's on a preventative maintenance service contract. We now have 20 full-time service engineers. So they're obviously, we're based in Mullingar, but we've our engineers in every county. We've engineers in Monaghan and Galway and Tipperary and Offaly and Laois and there's an engineer, I think, almost within half an hour of every customer. Okay, and we always have 3 people on call 24/7. So we would, without being arrogant, I do think we give excellent service. We work damn hard at it. Things can go wrong in the real world, but you know, any issues, we know they're a priority, and we never had a client left unable to milk their cows. So look, we do take that side very seriously, and I think that's one of the reasons, you know, business has grown quite dramatically, because we do what we say we do. We've great men on the road, well trained, well managed by our service manager Kevin Morgan and Conor Clark. So and our servicing is very, very reasonable. So, but if anyone needs more details or clarification on that, give us a call in the office. I'll happy to walk you through it. Last question is from Porrick. Peter, for yourself, what facility does Peter have for tubing cows?
I do it in a cattle crush, and it's I did 100 of them there in the autumn, and managed fine. Maybe it'd be nice to have a pit, but I'm managing fine doing them on my knees. I don't mind.
Sounds like hard work, Peter.
It's not that bad. No.
Yeah.
It's actually not that bad.
Did you blanket treat all cows out of interest, or are you
Sorry?
Did you blanket treat all your cows at drying off?
I did. While I'm straw bedding, I think I'll have to, you know, if I go all cubicles, I'll certainly be doing the selective.
Okay. That's fine. Look, guys, I'm going to finish it up there. I really want to thank, firstly, Peter Anderson for opening up his farm. Fantastic course. Thank you and your family. You're doing a tremendous job for someone who's really going into their third year, but it's probably not a surprise. You're an exceptionally good farmer, exceptionally good beef and sheep farmer. So I was fairly confident the first day we met that you'd really thrive if you took on the dairy challenge, and I'm glad to see you're enjoying it so much.
Yeah.
You seem to be really thriving on it. So well done to you and your family. I know you work closely with Jordan, so thanks very much, Jordan. Jordan is hugely experienced farm manager and support advisor, so as always, appreciate your contribution. Thanks to Sean Callan, as always as well. Sean, thank you very much. We also have Cormac Garvey on our farm manager and support team. He's not on tonight. He's on a different one next week. I want to thank William Conlon who pulled everything together. As always, you know, it's kind of hard. There's so much you could say, putting everything together, editing. It's a lot more difficult than you can imagine. Look, there's 10 or 15 questions we didn't get to answer. We will respond to those in the next 24 hours. Really appreciate everyone's engagement. Really appreciate all the people who logged in. And until the next time, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks now. Good night.
Cheers.
Thanks.